Good morning, students. Today I am going to discuss with you the NCERT questions. I have sent the PDF to you in the last class. So, let's start these questions from your chapter 3, Liberalization, Privatization and Globalization. So, why the reforms were introduced in India? The very first question. It means that why this policy of LPG it was came into effect in 1991. What were the reasons? Poor performance of the public sector. First point, we know that after independence, government took the major role. Government took the whole sole responsibility of improving the Indian economy. But these public industries or public sector was unable to perform well. The first point. That is why it was initiated to do privatization and to do liberalization. Liberalization means to give more rights to the individuals, private sector, give them more freedom. Second point is deficit in BOP. We followed a policy of introvert. We followed a policy in which we were not in favor of more exports and imports. So, due to this policy, our BOP it suffered. As given here, heavy taxes were there on the imports, and there was a very slow growth of the exports. So they were not in favor of imports, and the exports were not able to grow at the same time. So what does it resulted in? It resulted in a deficit in BOP. Now, what could be done? What could be done to improve the situation? Globalization was promoted as a policy so as to increase exports and imports, which will give us more income will be generated, and we will be able to have a balanced BOP or a surplus one. Next is inflationary pressures, which is known as inflation is general rise in prices. So there was a lot of inflation at that point of time. There was a rise in the prices. That is why this policy was needed. And next point is fall in foreign exchange reserve. This is when the export import is less. Obviously, we will have less foreign exchange reserves, because what are the foreign exchange reserves? When we are getting payment for our exports, like we make payments for the imports and we get the payments for the exports, and when what we get is more than what we pay, that gives us foreign exchange reserves. Since the export import were less, there was less foreign exchange reserves. Now, huge burden of debts. The government was spending much more than its revenue. When the government expenditure is much more than its revenue or earnings, then it has to borrow money, either from the within the country, from the banks or general public, or it can borrow from outside the country. Okay, from other countries, from the organizations like IMF. So when it was taking so much loan to carry on its expenditures, it resulted in debts. Debts means when the loan is taken, you have to return the principal amount and also the rate of interest. So it goes on increasing. The rate of interest is there. You have to pay more than the principal amount, and it keeps on increasing also until and unless you are not paying back, your loan will tend to increase. It becomes a huge burden of debts. Inefficient management. It means the government was not able to successfully manage either the public sector enterprises, or also it was not able to manage its own expenditures and revenues. How many countries, next question, are there in WTO? You will correct this answer. There at present you will say 164 member countries are there of WTO or World Trade Organization. Here it is given 149. Do the correction. What is the most important function of RBI? RBI, it controls the entire banking system in the country. So it also issues the currency, except 1 rupee note, which is issued by the government of the country. Next is, how was RBI controlling the commercial banks? Here we are talking about before 1991, how the RBI was behaving and what does the changes it brought after 1991. Here we are talking about the financial sector reforms. Before 1991, RBI was playing a role of control. It was controlling the entire banking system. It was very difficult for the bank to take permissions to open up new branches and to set up their new banks was very difficult, so there was a lot of control by the RBI. But after this policy of 1991, what happened? The role of the RBI becomes that of a facilitator. It tried to facilitate the entire financial sector. It was playing a role of improvement in the financial sector. So from controller or regulator, it becomes a facilitator, and the banks or the financial sector was allowed to take its own decisions without taking the consent of the RBI. Private banks were established. Okay, due to this new change in the role of RBI, private bank also began to take a prominent role in the financial sector. Foreign investment also increased, and there was easy to get the permissions of or the approval of RBI for new branches of the bank. Or now you can see, if they have to open an ATM, they can open. There is not much control of RBI like that of before 1991. What do you understand by devaluation of rupee? This is your 5th question. Yes, students, I would also advise you that the voice is clear in this audio visual is not clear in most of the things I am putting on the YouTube, and I am providing you the link. This is because on YouTube they are not giving a good upload. The pixels are not uploaded as it is, they are reduced. I am uploading 720 pixels and it becomes 140 or something when after it's uploaded. So that is why I am sending you material differently. PDF is being sent to you, so you have to actually look into your PDFs when you are listening to the audio. Okay, and secondly, if you have book, you can very easily follow the book, Sandeep Garg. This is all given in Sandeep Garg. I am just explaining you. I am just giving you an idea, because sometimes the words are not clear, or sometimes the basic idea behind an answer is not clear, or behind a topic is not clear. So that is what I am doing. But you can see in your books, you can refer to your books. If you don't have the book till now, you can refer to the PDF being sent to you. And if there is any problem, you can put up in the comment box of the YouTube, because देयर आई विल बी एबल टू नो आपका जो क्वेश्चन है, अगर इस वीडियो का है तो इसकी कमेंट बॉक्स में होगा. अगर आप प्रीवियस वीडियोस आप नहीं देख पाए हैं एंड यू आर लुकिंग एट आफ्टरवर्ड्स, उसमें भी आप अपने क्वेश्चंस एंड क्वेरीज वहाँ पे डाल सकते हैं. सो आई कैन गेट अ नोटिफिकेशन एंड आई कैन आंसर यू एज सून एज पॉसिबल फॉर मी. अदरवाइज़ हम हर क्लास में आफ्टर द एक्सप्लेनेशन हम लोग आपका एक व्हाट्सएप क्वेरी राउंड रखते हैं, जिसमें आपको क्वेश्चनिंग करनी होती है. दैट इज़ बेटर कि आप रोज़ जब भी आपका क्लास हो आप टॉपिक कवर करें एंड क्वेश्चंस पूछें, ताकि डाउट्स जो हैं दे विल बी क्लियर्ड राइट अवे. Yes, I was talking about devaluation of rupee, question number 5th on page number 3.14, guidelines to NCERT. Devaluation का मतलब होता है, devaluation of rupee means when the government is reducing the value of the currency, like we are talking about rupee. In 1991, when the new policy was announced, the Indian government, it devalued the rupee, and according to the international market. So reduction in the value by the government. And if we are talking about depreciation of rupee, this is another term. Depreciation का क्या मतलब होता है? Depreciation means when the value of rupee is reduced according to the international market of foreign currency exchange. Okay. Now why the government took to devaluation? Because rupee was overestimated before that. So no country was ready to export and import with India. So according to the international market, the government devalued the rupee, so that there are more exports, more imports, and the BOP situation can be improved. Distinguish between bilateral trade, question number 6, and multilateral trade, tariff and non-tariff barriers. Between two countries, if there is a trade, it is known as bilateral. When it is more than two countries who are trading, it is known as multilateral. Barriers, trade barriers, we are talking about tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. Tariff barriers means when there is a huge import duty or export duty on the commodities. Duties means, tariff means taxes. So huge taxes on export, huge taxes on imports, then it is known as tariff barriers. And when the barrier is in the form of some quantitative restrictions, like we can import only this much amount of this particular commodity. If we are importing some machinery from USA and the government say you cannot import more than 100 machines, so that is known as quantitative restrictions, that is known as non-tariff barriers. इसमें थोड़ा क्लियर नहीं है आपके में. नॉन टेरिफ बैरियर्स आर इम्पोज्ड ऑन अमाउंट ऑफ, अमाउंट का मतलब क्या हुआ? वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट क्वांटिटी, हाउ मच क्वांटिटी. वाई आर टैरिफ इम्पोज्ड? क्यों टैरिफ इम्पोज होते हैं? बिकॉज इट मेक्स द प्रोडक्ट रिलेटिवली एक्सपेंसिव. अगर वो एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, वी आर एक्सपोर्टिंग एंड वी आर putting tax, the government is putting tariff on it, that is duty, export duty. So if it is of rupees 100, it becomes, if 50 rupees is charged, 50% is the export duty, it becomes of 150 rupees. Okay, so this will make the product less attractive in the international market because the price has increased. Why the government is doing? Government want to put a cap on the export of quantity. Like if it is agricultural product, a particular product is there, like it can be sometime, if you say apples are exported to other countries, good apples. Now apple price is 200 rupees per kg, for example, decided by the exporter, but the government put a tax of 50 rupees, it becomes 250. So earlier the foreign country was ready to import a specific quantity, now it becomes expensive, it will reduce the quantity. Why the government has done that? If every apple is exported in the international market, what will the domestic territory people will do? They will also need these products. So to have the availability in its own market also, सब कुछ ही एक्सपोर्ट नहीं होना चाहिए ना. This is an only example I want to make you understand with. The same way, if it is an imported good, if a good is imported from outside, if some product is being imported from outside, maybe mobile phones, the government is importing 100% duty. If it is of 5,000, it becomes 10,000 when it enters into your territory because of the import duty put by the government. Now you will say it becomes expensive, it is not good, we are not able to afford it. People say like that ना, ये तो बाहर तो इतने का है ये मोबाइल, यहाँ पे हमें इतना महंगा क्यों मिल रहा है? This is because of the import duty. So why the government is doing? Because there are local manufacturers of mobile. They cannot, there are some local companies who cannot withstand the competition from the foreign companies, है ना? You will be given an option, you will buy their products, you will not buy your domestic producers product, mobile produced within the country. So to maintain a market in which we can buy the products of the domestic producers also, and from the foreign countries can also be available, to pick a balance between them. Okay, the government is doing this so as to protect the local producers. There should be demand for their product also. If I have only 5,000, I can buy an Indian mobile, okay? And if I could have got a mobile from a foreign MNC multinational, then obviously I will not buy that, okay? And why their products prices are better? Because it's another long story, because it's a big company, they have many benefits, scale of operation is there, as you have read in the law of variable proportions, because large scale production, more benefit to the producer. That's why their products are very low priced and competitive in the market. So moving on to the what is the meaning of quantitative restriction? I have already told you, non-tariff barriers are known as quantitative restrictions. Moving on the next page, those public undertakings which are making profits should be privatized. Do you agree? Why? If a public industry is in profit, it should not be privatized. Why it should be privatized in the very first place? Only when it is losses, when the government is not able to manage it, and it is proving no good to us, then only it can be privatized. Otherwise there is no need. Okay, so we have given the reason also. You can go through this answer and you will try to understand it in this language only. Do you think outsourcing is good for India? Why are developed countries opposing it? Okay, before going further into, आपको बताया चुके हैं outsourcing क्या होता है. This we have already covered. Outsourcing means when the foreign company or multinationals, they are opening their offices in India and they are giving some work to the here to the people here. You know how is it done? Actually, they are the producers. They need some services, and these services they outsource. Okay, they contract is they give the contract of these activities to the third party. Okay, so if in India, if there is a company, basically this is possible because of the IT boom. If there is a company in India, if there is a such office in India, like for example, if we say Genpact, there the people are providing services. Okay, there the educated people are there from the MBAs in finance, who are providing financial support to the banking system in America, for example. Okay, and this is outsourcing. The work is being transferred here because here the people ready to work at a lower salary, lower wages, and that is why it is for the benefit of the MNC also. They are making huge profits, and the opportunities are available to the people in a country like India, where there is a huge population, where there is so much unemployment in the country. So this is a very good way of providing work to the people in our country. So do you think it is good for India? Yes, because we have so many problems of unemployment and stuff like that. Why developed countries? Now they say the developed countries are opposing it. Why they are opposing it? Because now the things have changed from the last 5 years, 6 years. If you see, America has got a problem after this setback in 2009. You would say, I would say 10 years, you can say. After the setback in 2009, when there was a world crisis, America realized they were losing jobs. People there, it was for the first time that they were losing jobs. They were lacking opportunities, and now they don't want their companies. I'm giving an example of a developed country. You can count every other developed country into that. Okay, America is something which is very much in terms with us. We talk about it so often, so that is in examples also. So what does it do? It is now not, the government is not ready, that the companies who are outsourcing the work to the third world countries or to the developing countries, they should not do that. It is putting some norms, it is putting some rules and regulations, and they are opposing this outsourcing, so that their own people can work, so that their own people can get the opportunities, so the problem of unemployment can be solved. One thing else, 2009 crisis, I'm talking about the crisis in which was due to the hedge funds, lack of security in that, and major banks in America, they lost half of their funds value, and it has an effect on all the countries, to India also, because of the global economy. You can refer to it on Google it about it. It's not a part of your syllabus. Now, next is, India has certain advantages what make it a favorite outsourcing destination. What are those advantages? If you see, India is having educated people, skilled manpower, you can say, who can work as financial analysts, who can work as bankers, who can provide customer services, who can provide IT services. We have so many good IIMs, IITs. We have cream of the students available, professionals available in the country. You can work for these MNCs. Secondly, the salary they ask is also very less. The salaries to be given to them is also very less as compared to the ones that could have been given in their own countries. Apart from that, the government policies are also flexible in India for the MNCs to operate. And India has its own worthiness or credibility in the international market. So these are the reasons, because we have a country which is a democratic country, a peaceful country, we could say. These were the reasons. Next question number 12. Do you think the Navratna policy of government helps in improving the performance of the public sector in India? Yes, actually, what is this policy? To bring professionalism in these public sector units and to make them work more effectively, government choose these 9 companies, big private companies, which were declared as Navratnas. So you can check out the list. Please try to search for the knowledge. Everything cannot be given in a video of 30 minutes. That's a timeline. You can always ask for more information. Always search for knowledge. Some examples are given: BHEL, BPCL, SAIL. So many are there. So they were given a right to operate freely without the government interference, so that their performance can be better. This was the reason they wanted them to operate in the international market too. They wanted them to expand in the international market. So these were given a great autonomy to work itself. Next page. What are the major factors responsible for the high growth of the service sector? So we see when we talk about service sector, we are actually talking about the tertiary sector. Because of the policy of liberalization, many restrictions were removed, and due to this there was a huge inflow of capital, and outsourcing was also done. Foreign investment increased, outsourcing increased, and that's why the demand of the services of the Indian professionals increased in the international market. Services performed very well in India, like telecommunication, information technology, finance, entertainment, travel, hospitality. So many examples are given. So these sectors, they had a rapid growth. That's why the service sector improved. Now, the main reason can be told here is technology and IT boom. Due to this only, we are able to provide the services to some other people in some other countries by sitting in our own country on the click of a mouse. Cheap and skilled manpower is also the one of the major important reasons, as we have discussed. Now next is agriculture sector appears to be adversely affected by the reform process. Why? This is your question number 14. Because there was reduced public investment in the agriculture sector. Not much investment was done here. Subsidies were removed. Subsidies means special provision on the fertilizer purchase, which was given to the farmers. The fertilizer were available at a lower price, that was removed. Now import duties were, exports and imports improved. Tariffs were reduced, import duties were reduced. What was imported from other countries, the taxes were reduced. So agriculture products was also imported more. Minimum support price has to be removed under the policy. restrictions were removed. Quantity, I told you, many agriculture products were not allowed to be imported in a specific quantity. They were have to be imported in a low quantity. That restriction was removed. So Indian farmers, they come in direct competition in the international competition, and they were not able to withstand the competition from the agriculture products from the other country. They were not able to increase their own exports. No support was given to them. Whatever support was given to them for their benefit, that was removed. So agriculture sectors adversely affected during this entire reform process. Why the industry sector performed poorly? The 15th question is about the industrial sector. Now, what we are looking here, we started with the growth of the service sector, tertiary sector, huge growth we saw. But agriculture, no, it performed poorly. Now we talk about industry, it performed poorly. Why? Because of the globalization. Now they have to face competition with the imported goods. But these domestic industries, they were not as efficient, as well managed, as competitive as the MNCs. So they cannot withstand the competition from them. They had lack of infrastructure. The non-tariff barriers were there developed by the developed countries. What does it mean? Indian industries, they have to face the competition in their own market, but they were not even able to sold their product to the other countries, big countries, developed countries, because there they reject our goods on the basis of some quality or standards, because they cannot directly do that. They cannot stop the import. They cannot put a quantitative or tariff restriction. So what the idea they bring behind that? They destroyed Indian industry by rejecting their products on the basis of the quality. Especially this was faced in the textile industry. Clothes from India, they are very good quality but rejected. Why? Because they want to protect their own producers. You see the dual policy, the characteristics of developed countries, the way they are manipulating the developing countries. What I would like to put in here, like what is in our benefit? Outsourcing. They are against it. What is in our benefit? Like we export to other countries. They are against it. So you can see the whole thing. Yes. Discuss economic reforms in India in the light of social justice and welfare. If we talk about this, we had a situation of growing unemployment. Although GDP increased during these periods, but there was growing unemployment. Why? Because there was not enough growth in the industrial sector. The main employment generation occurs in the SMIs, like small scale industry, medium industries. They were not able to develop. These industries, they are not able to withstand the competition. They are very important for generating more and more employment. Now, removal of subsidy. Second point, this affected the small marginal farmers very badly. Rise in price of food grains. Why the price rises? Because agricultural products were exported to the other countries, and it resulted in rise in price in the domestic territory itself because of lack of food grains. Cheaper imported goods from the developed countries, they destroyed the domestic industries. Spread of consumerism means there was a trend in which the people were spending more even what they require. This is what we are facing now. India has its own ancient tradition of spending only what is required and saving a part. This is what we learned from our ancestors. But now we are in the age of consumerism. We have a mobile phone, and as soon as something new is launched in the market, we just run behind it. We want to buy it as soon as possible. or the latest tab or the latest laptop. Unbalanced growth has been concentrated only in select areas in service sector. That is, we are talking about here is the growth in the tertiary sector was there, but at the same time agriculture sector suffered badly, industrial sector suffered badly, so there has been an unbalanced growth. This was the result of the LPG, of the policy of 1991, uh, of the policy which we studied in the entire chapter. We are able to analyze its impact. This was the last page. We discussed all these points. Hope you are able to understand and get a bit of idea about the chapter. Please refer to your book. Please do the MCQs, revision exercise. Don't peek into the answers. Do it yourself first of all and then see if you're right or wrong. It's very important to go through the exercises given in your book. Go through the very short answer type questions. These are given in your books. So small meanings which might not be clear to you, that will be cleared by looking at these answers in your book Sandeep Garg chapter 3. Thank you.